welcome back to Crushing Sounds. My name is Chris, back again for another album review for you. And wow, it's been a really good time for prog. I'm sure you all agree. We had Devon Townsend's album early in the year, which was amazing. Just last month we had the new Tool album, and that was cause for celebration because it was also amazing after 13 years. And here we are back again, this time discussing the new album from the prog metal giants, who are not Tool, the legendary Opeth. You probably know who they are. They've been around since 1990, or they didn't release an album until a few years after that. But they were considered, sorry, just going to read this. They were considered one of the big players in the prog metal scene, with many of their albums becoming seminal works within the realm of heavy metal, from Morning Rise, Still Life, Blackwater Park, Ghost Reveries, Damnation, and more, really. They're considered incredible albums. Depending on your thoughts regarding their newer sound, which I'll get into in a minute, a lot of people say that this band have never put out a bad album. They can never do no wrong. I personally am in that category of people, although a bit of history first. I was one of the few people that hadn't heard much Opeth when Sorceress came out. I just didn't know where to jump in. Their catalogue was enormous. Sorceress was their 12th album. The new album was getting so much attention that I thought, for the website that I used to write for, I thought, screw it, I'll check it out and review it. And I was absolutely blown away by it. I thought it was incredible. It was one of my top albums of that year. I think it was 2016. It was just absolutely incredible. It was one of those musical epiphanies that you have, where you have to then go back and check out everything the band have ever done. So I then went back and heard everything that they released. There are still one or two albums of theirs I haven't fully delved into yet, namely the first two. I kind of went in reverse order for some reason, but whatever. 3 years later, they're now one of my favourite bands of all time. Every album I've heard of theirs is a masterpiece, every single one. But of course, the elephant in the room, 3 albums ago, with the release of Heritage, Opeth decided to change their style pretty drastically, not to the degree of Anathema, but still pretty drastic. The brutal heaviness, specifically the very harsh vocals, were removed entirely from the music in favour of a more complex and rhythmic style of prog rock, with the occasional metal riff thrown in here and there. While there are some scores of people who have abandoned the band since they've changed this, which is completely fair enough, as it is quite different now, most Opeth fans are still on board with this new sound because, prog metal fans are generally, from my experience, the more open-minded metalheads. I mean, most metalheads are open-minded, I should stress, but you have to have a certain ear to appreciate prog music, and I think that transcends subgenres, if you ask me. But also, Opeth are fantastic at doing whatever the hell they want to do, no matter what kind of music they're making, be it the album Deliverance, which is mostly ballads, or Heritage, which is prog rock fusion kind of territory. But they're incredible at doing it. I even consider Pale Communion to be one of, if not my absolute favourite album that the band have ever done. They never wants to do anything half-hearted. Every album they've put out is great. And being a band who have just released their 13th studio album, that is absolutely remarkable to be that consistent. It's a real testament to their songwriting ability and their passion behind what they do. They don't subscribe to one subgenre. They'll keep doing whatever the hell they want and do it to the best of their ability, no matter what. It should be noted, though, that on this new album, which I keep forgetting what the bloody name is, it's weird, it's a Swedish name. I'll work it out later, but I'll get it up. Shall I get it up? I'll do this properly, shall I? While that's loading in the background. This is the first time in the band's career that they have released an album in two formats, basically. One where the lyrics are in the band's native tongue of Swedish, and one in English. This, of course, presents the question of which version you should go into. Before the album came out, I thought I'm going to probably listen to the Swedish version for this review, as according to Mikael Åkerfeldt, this was the version that was conceived and written first. So it's, I guess you could call it the true version of the album. Also, considering a change in language, I was worried that it would cause issues with lyrical phrasing, like syllables being too long or too short and sounding a little bit dodgy. Just to jump ahead real quick, that is a case in a couple of places, but it's not substantial enough to really be a major detriment to the album, really. It's kind of an understandable occupational hazard with moving the language around. Yeah, so that was really, I thought I'll listen to the Swedish version for this review. I also heard in an interview, Michael, well, I'll never know how to say his name, they considered releasing this album being their longest album they've ever done. Releasing it in Swedish was a terrible business move. So I do have to wonder if putting it out in English, excuse me, just so I could see my screen, putting it out in English was sort of a knee-jerk attempt to avoid a drop in sales from releasing a potentially inaccessible album to the English-speaking world, because let's face it, unless you live in Sweden, who the hell speaks Swedish? But, you know, I say, we know you're good for it, Opeth. You do everything right, so do what you think's best for the album. I'm sure you'll absolutely nail it. But so I started listening to this album midnight of the 27th, because that's when the album dropped, and I throughout the next 24-hour cycle I'd listened to both albums 2 or 3 times. I heard both albums a number of times, not just because I like to listen to an album multiple times before I review it, but because I couldn't stop listening to this thing. To absolutely nobody's surprise, Opeth have done it again. Here we go, I got the title written down here. In Cauda Venenum, I'm definitely saying that wrong. In Cauda Venenum, I'll just call it the new album before I butcher anymore. Yeah, to no one's surprise, it's fucking amazing. Just, of course it is. Each of the now 4 albums that the band have done since leaving the harsh vocals behind, which is a period of time bands have referred to as new Peth, with the previous stuff being old Peth. Sure, whatever. Each of the 4 of them have slightly different tones and styles to set them apart. So it's not just, oh, they're not heavy anymore. There's different things going on. And with this album, there's much more of an epic scope, with many instances of grand orchestration and very full arrangements. They've evolved yet again to create something new, even at album number 13, which is ridiculously impressive. But so to get into the songs, for the sake of ease, I will be referring to the tracks by their English titles, just so I can pronounce them, but I assure you I have listened to the Swedish version first, and I've heard both versions numerous times at this point. In fact, I'll just say again, either version is fine, so fine, as in they're fine to hear. So if you want to skip the Swedish version and go straight to English or vice versa, that's fine, do either. But the opening track is more of a prologue kind of thing. You know my thoughts on these. I can be very, very hit on this with them. It's got a pretty cool title, Garden of Earthly Delights, which sounds like a vegan soft sweet or something, but it sets the tone okay, although admittedly I do prefer the opening track, the opening interlude of Sorceress. Just prefer that kind of style more. It's ironic that I start this gushing review with a slight negative there, but now I'll bring it back. I adore the first track, Dignity. It might be one of my favourite Opeth tracks ever made. They released it prior to the release of the album, so it's had time to ferment in my mind, as it were. So, given time, I'm sure other tracks in this album I'll come to love more. But this track has everything. The crazy, chaotic Opeth style, but very refined. It's creepy at sounding points. There's choral chanting, there's weird spoken word bits as well. But it also drops to the complete other end of the spectrum with very mellow and beautiful somber guitar and keys work. Everything you can love about Opeth in the past is on this song, but within the new epic style of what we got here. And I absolutely adore the ending section of the song with very creepy chanting rhythm. I'm going to try and read the Swedish version here. It's the bit that goes Vanta i natten öppnar din ögon. That bit. Sorry for ruining that, but if you've heard the song, you know which bit I mean. It's so good, it's so creepy and really heavy, and the fact they got the guitar and bass following the melody of the vocals, it just creates this awesome, really full, creepy choral ending to the song. In fact, this bit alone makes me recommend the Swedish version, because it just sounds more creepy in a language I don't understand. If you already speak Swedish, then sorry, but you won't get what I mean there. But yeah, check out the Swedish version of that song if you're going to check out any of them. Yes, earlier I mentioned the grand orchestration of the album and scope, and nowhere is this more apparent on track 4, if you count the interlude, Next of Kin. The huge string ensemble adds so much epic tone to the track. I love classical instruments in metal, so for Opeth to include them, it's a recipe for absolute genius. It's not the first time the band have done this, but it's really embraced here and it's very big. But the song also drops way down the other end as well, with some almost Western style acoustic guitar riffing. It's just everything great about Opeth. There you go, I'm saying it now. There's another track way later called The Garroter, which does something similar but in a much more brooding fashion. So you've got similar things going on but done in completely different ways to keep the album very, very entertaining and interesting. No two songs are the same, but they're all within the same scope of one idea, which is such great songwriting to be able to do that. Another song, which is now one of my favourites from the band, is Love Lorn Crime. This is the song where Mikael Åkerfeldt kind of takes the forefront, really. It's probably kind of the emotional beat of the album, this one. Kind of like how Faith in Others was a very emotional close to Pale Communion. This is a similar sort of thing halfway through the album. It's very somber, very emotional, and his excellent vocals are on full display here. Okay, fine, his growls were amazing. No one's denying that. But his cleans are some of the most delicate just mesmerising in all of heavy metal, if you ask me, and this song takes full advantage of that. I also love the guitar solo that takes precedence over the second half of the song. I'm not sure whether that's Michael or Frederick doing that. It sounds like it could be either of them. They both have quite a unique guitar style compared to each other, so you can normally tell which one it is. But this one, I'm not quite sure. But whomever it is, it's so beautifully solos over the melody of the song, and it's so good. It's a really, really good solo. I wish I could write a solo half as good as that in my band, but yeah, it's fantastic. But what moving on, what I think will undoubtedly be a fan favourite is Charlatan, I think that's how it's pronounced. Despite most of the album going for a more epic, grand, sort of full kind of arrangement, this is probably the heaviest song the band have done in a very, very long time. Don't get your hopes up, there's still no growling, but the guitars are tuned disgustingly low, and we're almost in djent territory with the riffing. But with the added synths and extra sounds that Opeth bring, it's not nearly as robotic sounding as most djent. I think this will probably be a live staple, this song. I put money on it. It's also one I think most people will remember the most, having when they first hear the album. They'll remember this weird but brilliant track, which is just so out there compared to most of their new catalogue. Yeah, if you're missing your heavy fix Opeth, try Charlatan out. I think you'll be impressed. But I cannot go any further into this review without mentioning the member of the band that I think is one of the key components, what makes this album brilliant. Joachim, I think that's his name. He, on this album, on the keys, is better than he has ever been before. He has been with the band since Heritage, so he's a big part of the new sound, but here his presence is felt all over this album. The creepy synths, somber piano, the grand piano stuff as well. Excuse me. They all give this album its unique identity compared to the heaviness of Sorceress or the delicate guitar of Pale Communion. He also has some great melodies that he pairs up with Michael's. I'm just going Mikkel or Mike. Yeah, I don't know. God, why those Swedes have weird names. He pairs his piano melodies with Michael's soothing voice for some mesmerizing moments and some of my favorite melodies in Opeth's music ever. And it's just so epic at points. Love Lorn Crime is an obvious example of this because the first half of the song is just the two of them. But Universal Truth is another fantastic track. First of all, the change from head voice to powerful vocal harmony that first appears at 46 seconds in and is done a few times throughout the song is so fucking good. It's amazing. I really hope they play this song live because I'd love to be able to see that in front of me because it's so good. But then it quickly drops into just Michael's voice and Joachim's keys. Garrett, again, is another great demonstration of their partnership. It's very mature stuff and gives the album so much to appreciate on top of the crazy yet genius instrumentation. And we keep going with every song is just so good. And Opeth are great at elongated riffs that close a song just really powerfully. I mean, obviously, you know the song Deliverance and that ridiculously long, repeated, but genius outro, which is it's locks you in because the timing is not normal, but that's why it pulls you in, and that's why they can repeat it because you're constantly unpacking it the whole way through its playing. They do a similar thing with the final track. Oh god, I forgot to write the title of that one down. That All Things Will Pass, which is a natural ending title, I suppose. It has an elongated riff that repeats throughout the ending, but it's such a good emotional riff. I can see why they picked this to close the album, because it sort of rides that same idea casually through to the end. That just brilliantly composed piece of work to bring this album around full circle. I could gush over this thing all day. I have 4 pages of notes that you've seen me flitting around all over just to get all my thoughts into this review because I had so many. It's just another fantastic album from one of the best bands of all time, for my money. Sure, we all miss the growling of Opeth. We all do. I miss it as well. But if it means they can keep releasing amazing stuff like this, then I really don't care at all. Time will tell how this stacks up in my list of which Opeth albums are my favourite, but I can tell you right now, this album is way up there. Seriously. I think I like it more than Sorceress. Definitely more than Heritage. Not to put those albums down, they are amazing, but this band just keep getting better and better, even in this lack of heavy metal era that they're in, although Pale Communion is still amazing, one of my favourite albums ever made. But this is the 13th great Opeth album in a row. Truly one of the most consistent quality metal bands of our time. But not by doing the same thing over and over again, but finding new ways to mature what they're doing, to find new avenues and new ways to approach that genius conception that they've had all this time. And it's really special to have a band like that. It really is. It's been a great time for prog. I'm sure you'll agree. In Cauda Venenum, I'll never know how to pronounce it, but fantastic album. It's going to be really difficult to pick my favourite album of this year from the 3 prog giants that have released in this year, but there's been other great stuff as well. I probably should get around to reviewing an album I don't like at some point, because this is getting tedious, me liking everything. Maybe I'll review the new Dragon Force album. That should give me something to rag on. Maybe the new Steel Panther album as well. But I hope you enjoy me gushing over a band every now and then. Every now and then, that seems to be all I'm doing these days. I'll get to something bad, I promise. That'll be the next thing. But yeah, hope you enjoy. Hope you like the new Opeth album, because I can't get enough of it. I'm probably going to go back and listen to it again now. It's just so good. I think I'll listen to Universal Truth. Great song. So yeah, thanks for checking out this video. Check out more of our stuff. Check us out on social media. Hope you stick around and enjoy our content. Heavy metal. Cheers, guys. See you next time.